Now, if you have a dry wine, then it is almost certainly Saccharomyces cerevisiae that is completing your fermentation, which, as many of you know, is the same yeast that's used in bread, used in beer, and so on, and that's also used for commercial yeast fermentation. And that yeast is pretty strong, and it's ethanol tolerant. The yeasts that are coming in from the vineyard, they're not going to be tolerant up to 12 or 13% alcohol generally. But what they do is they're active at the beginning of the fermentation, and they're believed to lead to wider aromatic and textural complexity in the finished wine. And in fact, Christian Hansen, which is a very big, possibly the biggest producer of commercial yeast, they have cultivated yeasts that are they're intended for co-fermenting. It'll be Saccharomyces plus Candida or some other yeast. If you want to have control over your fermentation at a commercial yeast, you can sort of mimic what would happen in a native ferment. I call it ambient yeast fermentation because I think that's the truest to what it really is. You're letting whatever yeasts that are present do the job. So some other practices that are often used in natural wine: co-fermentation of different varieties, whether it's a field blend or things you pick differently but threw in together, and sometimes even non-grape elements. Some people use other fruits, some people use herbs, lavender, flowers, that kind of thing. It's really the Wild West, depending on what community you're in. Whole cluster and carbonic style has been of interest to a lot of winemakers. It leads to a delicious wine, so it's hard to argue with that. But also, with the whole cluster, there's thought that you're preserving more of those yeasts from the vineyard and allowing them to express themselves. And then you're creating a fruity, sort of exuberant style of wine that can really be appreciated while it's young and speak to the consumer. And even now, if you go to Bay Grape or any other wine shop in the area, you're going to see a lot more carbonic options than you used to 10 years ago.